On today's podcast episode, we have a special guest to talk about marriage and relationship advice, John Bushnell. John has been in ministry for 30 years. He is a certified prepare and enrich counselor. He studied for his master's at Liberty University in pastoral counseling. He has 8 married children, 8 children altogether, 15 grandchildren so far, and he is going on 40 years of marriage. Please enjoy the podcast and welcome my dad, John Bushnell.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Midwest Buzz. I'm JC.
I'm Olivia, and today, like the intro said, we have John Bushnell, my dad, with us. Go ahead, say hi.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Welcome to White Studios, as I like to call it. I don't think that's actually like formally on the LLC or anything, but
no, it's under Olivia and Media. This is the media.
Yes,
it's
there
a
we go.
Outlet. So,
welcome to the podcast.
yes.
Are you so excited to have your dad on?
Yeah. Well, my dad also actually has his own podcast, which
Oh,
I
yeah.
probably said in the intro.
Mm-hmm.
Have not recorded it yet. So
Future self will make sure to.
He knows how podcasts work and
Yeah.
stuff. He's
I feel
been
like
wanting to come on. So.
A lot of your family has podcasts, like here and
Well,
there,
yeah.
or in the past have, or like
My
yeah.
2 younger brothers have had a podcast. I think those are the only other ones.
Oh, okay. Well, you have
But-
cousins.
Oh, cousins
yeah.
that have podcasts.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a little podcast and fam.
Yes, we're all trying to.
What's the name of? Are you
No.
going to say it in the intro? But what's the name of your podcast?
The Bushnell Project.
Yeah.
Bushnell Project.
You just-
I know I've listened to a
Yeah,
few.
it's short little devotionals, like just going through the word, things like
Sweet.
that.
Cool.
Yes, but today we have Dad on. I'm just gonna refer to him as Dad because if I say John, that's weird. We have him on to talk about marriage, relationships, and the like.
All the
So-
things. That was one of the things you guys had asked. Like, you should do some on marriage advice, and I was like,
Yeah,
we should have John on.
yeah, because we are not experts. I've only been married almost 5 years.
And I'm clearly not an expert. So that's why John's here.
Yes.
We needed him.
So like I said, I gave a brief intro, but Dad, if you want to give a brief synopsis of your work history. We were telling JC briefly earlier, but I made them stop that he used to do photography. So if you want to give
Right.
a
And I
little...
needed to know more.
Photography in college.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that was a long time ago.
Yes.
So really what relates to here is being a pastor, studying for a master's degree in pastoral counseling, where I made my focus on marriage, premarital counseling. And Beth and I, your mother and I, we have done a lot of counseling of especially young people in the season of their life where they're still single but in pursuing a relationship toward marriage. And then counseling many who are married that are having various different struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So that maybe makes me an expert. We have probably counseled in one way or another over 1,000 couples. And we're still sometimes in touch with many of them.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many people, I know you've like married a lot of people, right? I just find, obviously
many
we talk about
weddings?
weddings all the time. Yeah. How many weddings have you done?
Wow, I don't...
Roughly, do you think?
Do you think it's over 100?
Oh, I don't think it's over 100 because
Okay.
there's a great expense. So a lot of the people that we've counseled have lived
Elsewhere.
or they're getting married elsewhere. So there's a big expense in flying out a pastor. Then they love Beth, so they want to fly both of us out.
Yeah.
And so, but from coast to coast, we've done marriages. Probably our most memorable ones have been in Southern California, Malibu, and LA, on the pier in LA, and at I'm trying to remember, Malibu was at a restaurant across the street from the beach.
Very fun.
So some fun ones, and I think I did count one time 18 different states. So
Oh, that's more than I've shot in weddings.
Plus you've done all your son's weddings.
Oh, yeah.
I performed my sons, but not my daughters, because walking them down the aisle was about all I could handle.
So
Sorry,
Uncle
boys.
Alan stepped in for 3 of them. Yeah.
I like it. Cool. Okay. Do you just want to dive into questions?
Sure.
Let's get
Also, before we get into the questions, you guys, Olivia told me Headphones are out.
Oh, yeah. We're not wearing headphones because nobody is wearing headphones when they're podcasting anymore. And so I didn't want to be the dweebs that's
And we are trend followers.
No.
Except for
I always have issues with the headphones messing up my hair and stuff, where JC, it completes her hair look. So she's struggling.
Always.
I do want to say Adam and I did premarital counseling with my parents. And so, yeah, just thought that was
And that's the hardest thing when it's your
own kids.
One of them is your own child. So
Yeah.
I will say that is a little bit.
I wouldn't recommend it for everyone. It's very much a personality type.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, I'm the personality type.
And we
person,
try to
whatever.
we try to give the option to the person that wasn't our child. Like, if you want to
Yeah.
find someone else, that's fine. We can definitely
Yeah.
recommend somebody. But
Yeah.
Adam and Dad are very similar, and Adam really respects Dad, so he wanted to. But we did do a little bit with Uncle Alan as well, since he was our pastor.
That makes sense if
Yeah.
he's like marrying you. That was one of the questions actually that like relates on here is, I mean, a little bit, but it says, how do you handle healthy boundaries with extended families / in-laws, i.e. like on holidays and just spending time together?
Well, okay, so spending time together, if you're married, or even before you're married, if you're engaged, you do need to realize that you're becoming your own family. So what I would always counsel people is you need to make Christmas what you want it to be, not what your parents made it. What your parents made it, we made it for our family, but now you're creating your own family. So what do you want Christmas to be? What do you want Thanksgiving to be? And if you want to spend every other Christmas with one family, but then you have a Christmas where it's you, just you.
Yeah.
But once you have grandchildren, parents can make it hard because they want to be with their grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
And so Beth and I, we were the only ones on my side of the family that had children, and my parents always
Came to us.
wanted to come to us because we had the grandkids. But they were respectful of either coming before or after Christmas and things like that. So
Yeah.
you do need to have those boundaries, but the main thing is make it your own. And if grandma and grandpa fit into a part of it, great.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I feel like just like in my family, I'm always like with my brother and his kids and his wife, I'm always like, just come be with us. Like, I just want to see my nephews and stuff. But then I do have to remember, like you said, like that's
They're their
their
own
family.
family,
That's
yeah.
their unit. And just being respectful of that.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back and forth? Do you just want me to list everything I have? What do we want to do?
Yeah. You can just,
Okay.
since you haven't.
Okay. Someone said thoughts on a husband and wife having separate bank accounts.
Okay, well, there's so lots of different philosophies there. But the main thing I would say is that you need to build trust and you need to build communication. So having one bank account helps build the communication. Having separate bank accounts might help develop trust. So if you're going to have separate, you probably should have one that you both share that pays the bills that are yours together. So that the rent, the car payments, the insurance, anything, the groceries and things like that. And then if she has an account that's for her that she puts in a certain amount of her pay into, and vice versa with him, you can do that. There are some out there that say you need 4. Each person should have one. The couple should have a main bank account for paying all the major bills, and then they should have another bank account together that is their savings for future things like vacation, if they're going to have children, paying for weddings and college. So that would be a 4th account. So each one has a separate, then they have 2 together.
Interesting.
Beth and I have always just had the one because I'm not great with details. I don't care about details. And Beth cares about the details and doesn't want to wake up one morning and not have enough in the bank account to pay the bills. So she paid attention to the details. She managed it, and I tried to keep it afloat by working.
Yeah, I was going to say, Adam and I have one joint, and then we each have our own. Well, mine is like the ones we had before we were married, and we didn't close either of them because I use it now for my business. And then his other one is because it's like a local bank. It's kind of hard to close, and he already had his paychecks going there. So then he just transfers everything. he doesn't like actually use it outside of just his
It's just
paycheck
like
goes there and then he transfers it.
Yeah. I think like the business aspect of it is a hard because like when you obviously if you're both just like W-2 employees, your paychecks come straight into an account, like it would be a little bit cleaner.
Yeah.
I feel like if you
But obviously you want to keep your business because you're going to have expenses and stuff that don't pertain to your...
Right. Entrepreneur spirit creates a whole other avenue in that area. So you still need to think about, okay, if I'm the entrepreneur, or we both are, then those are the separate accounts.
Yeah.
But you also know that, okay, I need to put this percentage of what I'm making into this account that we pay our bills with. That would help. Or you just don't have that middle one as long as you know who's paying what bills and things like that. There used to be, back in the day before all of electronics came in, one of the things that was very successful was for couples to have a weekly budget meeting. Now some people hate that. But back in the day, people used to use cash a lot more. Mm-hmm. So at your weekly budget meeting, you literally got cash out. Here's the money for groceries. Here's the money for gas. Here's the money for this. And what it really helped, though, more than anything else, was in communication. So finances are just an indicator that they're of another issue, which could be trust. It could be communication or lack thereof. It could be insecurity. So other things show up in the area of finances, but finances is never the real issue. It's just exposing something else.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I always thought that like having separate bank accounts would be bad because, well, it depends on the personality, I suppose. But if like they're like, well, that's my money, you have your own money, like whatever. I feel like that wouldn't be healthy in a marriage.
Yeah, like I can spend my money on this because I made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you'd have to have the right personalities and hope they would do that.
It's obviously going to be like the mindset on it, like you said, the trust.
Yeah.
And the transparency, because you could be completely transparent and be like, here, you have the passwords for everything. You can go on and look at everything. Like, I don't care. Like, oh, hey, like, can you go onto my bank account and transfer money over? I need you to do that. Like, if you're being transparent with it, probably fine. But I could also see it being really bad, too. Like, your credit card bill came out. And you're like, what was that for? You're like, never mind. Don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Well, if a wife grew up in a home where dad was super controlling and she was never trusted to know the value of, well, you're spending too much on clothes. It was always critical. And now she's getting married, that it may be very, very important to her to have her own account where she doesn't have to hear, oh, you're spending too much on this and that. But it's working on them, the new husband and this young lady, in understanding that we need to help him truly cherish and value her in a way that maybe her dad never did. And to understand that together this money is yours. So it's not his, it's not hers, it's yours. It doesn't matter who made it. When you go into a marriage covenant, marriage contract, you now are going to share everything. And yes, you have to be honest with, what hobbies do I have? How do I like to spend money? Do I like to have new clothes? I'm for the first time in my life living in the Midwest, and I lived in Texas, but I didn't see it as much there as I see it here. But guys love their stuff. I mean, what I mean by that is like their guns. Their guns or their bows or their fishing equipment, and they have these ice castles, right? These trailers with heat in them and everything else, and maybe TVs, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And they go ice fishing, and it's not anything of what I imagine ice fishing to be. But I can tell it's not cheap. And so the whole thing is that if going in that marriage conference, both of you understand, hey, this is how I spend my money. Are you okay with us spending our money this way? That needs to happen, because that helps the maturing of both. But for a lot of guys, the maturing aspect may be slower. Well, this is who I am. This is how I'm going to be. Well, do you want to mature and realize it's not yours anymore? It's it's you and hers. And also, as a counselor, how do I help someone understand, as you go into this relationship, that just because mom and dad did it this way doesn't mean that was right. Just because your dad made you feel this way doesn't mean that's who you really are. And so these other things sometimes just help you to pinpoint, oh, here's how maybe you're feeling this way. And let me help you, or the two of you, address that and come to a place where she is now more comfortable buying her own clothes, not feeling like dad's going to criticize my spending. Which, if she's afraid dad's going to criticize her spending, she's probably going to be afraid that her husband's going to criticize her spending. And now she's going to want to hide her spending. And that's never healthy for a marriage relationship. It wasn't healthy in the parenting style either. Right. But I'm not usually asked to counsel on that. So
yeah. I always think that's interesting because my dad is so complimentary of like, oh, you look so nice in that outfit today, or that color is so good on you. And I've been teaching about color theory and how like different colors look better on you. And so now he's like, that color is definitely in your wheel. And I'm like, everyone should be complimenting me as much as my father.
It's a high to me, Cole.
Okay. Someone said, as a guy, why would I want to get married if we are already living together and sleeping together?
Ooh.
It's a good question.
So that brings you to a premise of, what does this person believe? Yeah. If they're a Christian, then
you're living in sin, bro.
You're living in sin, that's right. So regardless of whether you gossip or are living with somebody you're not married to, you're in sin.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we put more emphasis on certain sins.
It's all sin to God.
Right. So understanding it's sin. So you're living in sin. That's why you shouldn't continue that way. And you should, if you want to pursue that relationship, then get married. Mm-hmm. That's what you should do. If you're not a Christian, then that's a great question, right? So if you're, the world is benefited by marriage. So when people, whether they're believers or not, get married, it is better for society. Mm-hmm. History has proven that. Cultures where marriage is not very popular. So for instance, you look at Haiti. Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. It has the least amount of marriages, population-wise, percentage-wise, of any other culture in the Western Hemisphere. And it's the poorest. Now, there's other reasons why it has issues, but marriage does tend to elevate a culture and a society.
Yeah, you can have that family unit.
Yeah, the family unit is super, super, super important for raising men and women. You sort of need, it's better to have a couple, a man and a woman, raising men and women. That's how God designed it. So even if you don't believe in God or aren't Christian, marriage still benefits you and it benefits your society, your culture. When you don't get married, then for the female in particular, but not always, it can also be for the guy, there is no protection. Mm-hmm. There's no guarantee that tomorrow he's still going to want to live with you. There's no contract.
Yeah, lots of uncertainty.
Right.
That's how you'd feel.
So the insecurity can be super high on one person, but if they're very submissive, if they're
confrontational,
then they're going to submit to it. And this other person, whether it's the guy or the gal, has dominance. And it's not a healthy relationship, and they tend to be toxic, and they tend to develop more toxic people. So if that were to have a child in that relationship, that child tends to be more unstable than even their parents were. And so marriage, it doesn't fix it, but marriage is God's design for the husband, for the man and the woman to live together in this covenant.
Yeah, the unity.
I feel like there's just like so much safety in marriage too. Yeah, like that security, like you said.
The structure to the kids, if you're gonna have kids, like be married.
This one says, what is your favorite marriage book?
Wow, that's okay.
Tough question.
You can list multiple, maybe.
Yeah.
Because that's hard to probably just pick one. Maybe?
Well, I would say that
the Bible.
Yeah, the Bible is definitely but you can't just read Ephesians,
Well,
right? So Ephesians would be Ephesians and Colossians would be great for husbands and wives to read over and over again. But I'm thinking of Tim Keller's book,
The Meaning of Marriage.
The Meaning of Marriage. I think that's a very practical. He's a good communicator, and he was.
Yep.
So that's a good one for. Wow.
Yeah, on the spot.
What's the one that I read before this?
That you guys just
Love is a decision.
Yeah, love is a decision.
So love is a decision is good, especially if you're struggling with, well, I don't feel like he or she loves me, or I feel like I don't know that I love them anymore. I would definitely read Love is a Decision, and it's an older book, but it's good. It's still real good.
The Bible's also old, and it's still really good. So sometimes old books
It's in a
are where
whole-
it's
yeah,
at.
It's a whole different category.
Yeah.
So I would say modern-wise, the reason for marriage would be
I mean, The Meaning of Marriage.
the meaning of marriage. Yeah.
Yep. Essentially something. Timothy Keller, Meaning of Marriage. Good book.
And I know after the podcast, I'll think of the one that I really like. But
Yeah. Maybe we'll leave it in the
we can add some comments in the Okay, someone says, who do you think has the biggest influence on your life, specifically someone outside of your immediate family?
So outside of God, probably.
I'm not sure if, I'm assuming this is just like who should, because it says who do you think, but like
him personally, or
So
just
not
that's
me
what
personally.
I'm like, is it you personally, or is it, I feel like it's like
in
as
general,
a
they're
person,
like,
who should it be?
Influence you
Yeah.
more than.
I don't know. How would you take that? You read it.
Okay. Well, you can think of your answer.
Well, I'll answer assuming that it's the person's wondering who should have the most influence on them.
Yeah.
I think it's asking him. So it says, who do you think has had the biggest influence on your life? Specifically, someone outside your immediate family.
Okay. So maybe it is for you.
All right. So for me, I would probably say it's John Piper. He's a pastor. He's been a pastor for a long time, and now he's stepped away from it, taking on a role, I think, as a president of a seminary. But John Piper and his wife Noelle, I've read almost everything he wrote up until maybe the last 10 years. He's a very prolific writer. And they have written some books on marriage. That's what I was trying to think. I was trying to think of the John Piper book on marriage, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But he wrote a book, Desiring God, and he wrote it during a hurricane, was writing it during a hurricane in Pensacola, Florida. And I ended up we moved to Pensacola, Florida right after Olivia was born, and met a lot of these pastors that hosted this conference, and they told me, hey, you need to read this guy's book. You would really like this guy. So back then, I started following John Piper. I read his Desiring God. It really, really was impactful on my life and my ministry. So I would say he's had the most influence. I've gone to his pastoral conferences. If he wrote it, I probably read it back in the day. And I just haven't been able to keep up with all he's just
He's
just pumping out the books.
so much.
Yeah.
There's one says This Momentary Marriage.
Yes.
Is that it?
That is his, and it's really good.
Okay.
And he's a good writer. So some people that write, they're good communicators, they're good on stage. John Piper is a writer. He's very good at writing, and he's very good at getting articulating his point. So if you get a chance to read something by John Piper in an area that you want to read, I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah. I remember you making us all read Don't Waste Your Life.
Yeah, Don't Waste Your Life by John Piper, yeah.
Okay, someone said, I want to be a SAHM, stay-at-home mom, but my husband doesn't think we can afford it.
Yeah, so affordability, wow. So if Beth and I if we would have waited till we could afford children, we wouldn't have any. And we have 8. All right, so as believers, it is a journey in faith. So as a believer, as a husband and wife, you really need to sit down and ask God, what should we do? God may want to help you walk through an amazing journey where, yes, you can't afford to do that, but with God, you can. So I think you need to maybe frame it a little bit differently. Regardless of whether we can afford it or not, do we feel like God is calling us to this lifestyle? And if God is, then he will make a way. If you want to live life how you want to, and that sounds like in this case, maybe one wants to live life A and the other one wants to live life B, then you're going to struggle, and you're going to struggle because the two of you aren't united. And one of you, at least, if not both of you, are not following God fully. So there is a surrendering to God in marriage and being submissive to one another. So, of course, Ephesians says, wives, submit yourself to your husbands. The Bible also tells us to submit to one another. And so in this case, you really need, the husband needs to say, okay, my wife is saying she wants to do A. I'm not comfortable with that. Lord, help me. Help me to better understand my wife. Help me to understand if this is your way of telling me this is what you want us to do. And so the husband needs to recognize what God might be trying to show him through his own wife's desires. And that can be pretty humbling as a guy. But the harder part really is the two of you becoming unified with God for his vision for your life versus your vision for your life. So maybe your prayer should be, Lord, help us to live the life you want us to live. What does that look like? Help us know.
Yeah.
That's
and
good.
If you're not saved, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I think she wants to stay home with the children, which sounds to me she's probably saved. Now, let's say you're not saved, but you want to stay at home. I think as a culture, we have failed moms and children because
the whole feminist movement.
Yeah, exactly. So the women are better at raising children. Doesn't mean that a dad can't. And there are single dads out there. There are dads that are widows that are raising their children, and God gives them a special grace to do that. Mm-hmm. Just like a woman that is a widow that gets a special grace from God to raise those children without her husband. So, but moms being home with children is enriching to everyone around. Mm-hmm. It benefits our culture. It benefits society. It's better for our civilization. And it is a sacrifice on the mom, but we have made that deal, being a mom, a stay-at-home mom, we've made that a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Like looked down upon, or
what do you do?
Yeah, if you're just a stay-at-home mom, you're just a stay-at-home mom. No, she's a stay-at-home mom. She's doing the hard work. Now you can be an entrepreneur and mostly stay home. Mm-hmm. So you're filming, you're doing other things. Bringing in some money to the home. Your mother was always watching other people's children. Mm-hmm. So she was always bringing in extra money into the home. So there's lots of women out there who do a lot mm-hmm. while being this stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
So whether you're a Christian or not, staying-at-home mom is, I think, the higher calling.
Oh, absolutely. Totally agree. Which is why I'm like a stay-at-home mom mostly, because if Adam and I were honest, financially it doesn't make sense for me to stay home all the time, but we get by because God takes care of us. And I do stuff on the weekends and stuff because of my wedding business. I have a good business that goes for that, but
that does work well.
Yes.
Grant and Adam can have their little bro dates on the weekends.
Yes.
Okay, I think there's two more that I had, and then you can you have ones?
Well, I was just going to ask okay, do you think premarital counseling is important? If so, why?
Yes. So premarital counseling is important. Let me define it though. Yeah. So premarital counseling would happen before there's a ring. So before you're engaged, that's the time to go for premarital counseling, because the idea behind premarital counseling, the big question is, do you think as a counselor that we should get married? Also, in premarital counseling, you might find out something about the other person. They're like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's a game changer. Mm. But if there's already a ring involved, you're already engaged, there's a wedding date set, mm-hmm. Now you may feel pressured like, oh, wow, breaking this off right now is not a good idea. Yeah, so let's wait till we're married and then we'll break it off later, right? Yeah. So the premarital counseling is to help bring the couple to a place where they both feel like, yes, we are making the right decision. We should move forward. And they have the backing, hopefully, of their parents and now a counselor or counselors. So that would be the best premarital counseling. And then once there is a ring, now you start the marital counseling, and that counselor can help you even in preparing for the wedding day. One of the most stressful days, especially for a bride in her entire life up to that moment, will be her wedding day. And without good counsel, she'll walk right into a terrible day where she is, what do you ladies, girls call it?
Bridezilla,
right? Mm-hmm. You've maybe encountered a few?
I was actually just talking to, not a bridezilla, but a girl that I know was telling me about her wedding day. And she was like, I went to bed at 8:45. I was sick all day. I felt terrible. I just like, my mother-in-law just like not good, like all this stuff. And she was like, it was the worst day of my life. And I was like, that's so sad. She's like, I'm so happy I got married. I love him, but it was a terrible day. Right. She's like, we put on this show for everybody else. And she was like, and I just felt horrible. And I was like, that's so sad. Like, so sad to hear. But
yeah, so in the counseling leading up to the marriage, which now would be marital counseling after the ring, a good counselor is going to say, well, let's talk about your wedding. Make sure that there's a wedding planner. Make sure that they've thought through things, because you know how many weddings they have done? Oh, none.
Yeah, exactly.
As a counselor, especially as a pastor, you've probably done a few. You've seen enough mistakes and like, oh, that's a bad idea. Mm-hmm. So you can coach them and help them have a much greater day than.
Yeah. So. That's a good point. I never thought about like marriage count. Like I get you meet with your pastor and you talk about, like, oh, what passages are we going to read? Yeah. What, stuff like that. But you don't think about the other side of it.
It's more like coaching of the wedding ceremony.
So there, so a lot of pastors might just think, hey, you know what? I'm doing the ceremony. I don't want to get involved with anything else. Yeah. But as a counselor who's pouring into these two people, that you're really considering, hey, it really is the father or the bride's party in a biblical sense. So if it's two Christians coming together, the father of the bride is really his party, because in the end, God the Father is going to throw an amazing party for all of us. We're the bride, as weird as that sounds, of Jesus Christ. And that's the wedding feast of the Lamb. And so this is all a picture of that. So whether believer or not, that you want the parents involved, but it is this couple's special day. But it's also very special for the parents and the rest of the family. Yeah. So how do you do it in such a way where the bride isn't so stressed? And that's where a good counselor ought to come in and talk them through, help them with the budget, help them not go into debt for a big wedding that later on is going to be, man, why did we spend all that money? So some of us have experienced enough weddings to say, here's what I would advise.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Somebody, I feel like this one kind of ties in, says, when you're dating, how do you know if that person is, and they had the one quotation.
Well, do you find them attractive? As crazy as that sounds, that would be a big one. Like, oh, they got it together, they've got money, da 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 da. Yep. Do you find them attractive? And then, how mature are they compared to you? Would be my second question. Are you a lot more mature than they are? That's going to be a problem, because now you're going to feel like you're raising this person. That person doesn't want to marry their mother or their father. So you need to look at the maturity. So guys mature most often less quickly than ladies do. And a lot of times, a lot of the issues that can go for decades will be that she's more mature, he's not. She's being mom. He resents her for acting like his mother. And so the maturity, how mature are you both? Is he mature? Is she mature? Those would be the things. And then I would look at family. Is there going to be, are we similar in
the way we were brought up?
Yeah, and the way we were brought up, those kind of things. And then if you're a believer, you need to be falling in love with another believer.
Yeah, equally yoked.
So that's the biggest. I would say those are the biggest things. There's cultural issues that can come up. So if you're, let's say you are in love with somebody who's from another country, you do need to consider the culture. If they believe the same, you're still equally becoming yoked. And if they speak a different language, that's their first language. So what's their native language? Are you willing to learn their language? Mm-hmm. So there are people out there that married someone whose first language is not the same. That person learned their language, but then that person, that other, let's say the husband doesn't learn her language. That tends to be an issue, and can be a much bigger issue than we think. So, but those things, that's cultural, but the main thing is, do you find them attractive? Do you find them on the same maturity level as you? And then what are the similarities? I mean,
do you get along?
Family. You don't need to necessarily have the same hobbies.
Right.
But if you had a long weekend together, what would you do that you would both enjoy?
That's good. When you were talking about all the guys' hobbies in the Midwest, I was thinking about that. I was like, Midwest boys truly do have so many hobbies.
Yeah.
Like, I just know, like, so many of my, like, brothers' friends are just, like, friends and stuff, and it's like, oh, like, we fish, we hunt, we golf, we snowmobile, we, like, we do all the things.
Well, and part of it's the culture, right? So that here you work really hard in harvest, and you work really hard in planting. Mm-hmm. And then you have sort of a downtime, a somewhat extended downtime. And so what are you going to do? Well, you're going to fish, you're going to hunt, you're going to go boating if it's summer, you're going to go snowmobiling if it's winter. So it makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But
I just always, I giggle because I've had conversations with guy friends and they're like, I just got to drop a hobby. Like, I got too many. Like, even they know it. So, okay. I just have, I think there was just one more. It says, my boyfriend and I have been dating for 4 years and I want to get married, but he says, what's the rush? I feel like that kind of ties into the other question, but if you want to answer it, you can.
Well, so my philosophy with our children, Beth and I had a philosophy of one, let's not date until you're ready to get into a serious relationship. And then if you do get in a serious relationship, it should not be long, unless there's some circumstances involved in that. So, for instance, when Adam and Olivia started considering dating, they were both old enough, mature enough that it could lead to marriage. Then once they started dating and Adam really wanted to marry Olivia really wanted Adam to ask her, that I loved it because it wasn't a long relationship. It doesn't need to be a long relationship. And they had the right people speaking into their lives. Both sets of parents were very involved with the whole relationship, and they had family behind them on both sides. So that made it super easy. So my philosophy is that don't date until you're ready to really be in a serious, until you think you're ready for marriage. Because if you start dating at too young of an age, then all you're going to learn is divorce. You learn to break up, which is what divorce is. So we're teaching our 13, 14, 15-year-olds how to divorce versus how to really be in healthy relationships. You can learn to be in healthy relationships by hanging out with groups and learning what you like from the opposite sex without having some weird commitment, whatever.
Little like 8th grade dating adventure.
Yeah. And then when you go to do something, if you don't hold her hand, she feels like you don't like her anymore. And all these other pressures that we don't need in middle school and high school. And again, it's realizing that guys don't mature as quickly as girls. So girls are usually ready sooner than the guys are. Now, let's talk about, now you are in a relationship, you both should maybe get married. I would say that a long-term dating relationship, I would not allow it. I would actually counsel her, man, ditch the guy. Get out of that relationship. It's not healthy. And then give yourself time to recover from it before you try to date somebody else. So you're not breaking up to date somebody else. You're breaking up because he's non-committal. What's the rush? Now let's say he's working on his master's degree or a PhD, or in the military and going to be deployed. That's a whole different.
Yeah, obviously there are a lot of circumstances that.
But if you're dating and maybe really tempted to move in, there's a lot of other temptations in a long dating relationship. Those temptations don't get easier, so it's better to say, okay. So with our children, as they dated, we had sort of a 6 month to 1 year window where we really paid attention to, okay, is this serious? All right, if it's serious, could you see yourself marrying this person? If you could, let's say our daughter's thinking, yes, I think this is the one. Well, then I'm going to go talk as the father of the daughter. I'm going to go talk to my potential future son-in-law. And now I'm not teaching him. I'm not going to teach him. I'm not going to treat him like a suitor. I'm going to go more and treat him like a future son-in-law, and say, okay, son, let's talk. What's the plan? So so for instance, our daughter who had the longest relationship, her husband knew what he's going to do. He had his life planned out. So he's going to complete college, do this year of teaching in a place where the government pays off some of your school loans because you're teaching in a place where no one else wants to teach. So sort of the poorer parts of the country. So he's going to do that for a year, and then he's going to go to law school. And so what he wanted to do was to get engaged, and there was going to be this long engagement because of these other things. Well, he had a plan. And so we prayed and thought, okay, he's got a plan. It's a healthy plan, and we can get behind that. So we're not opposed to a longer engagement or even a longer time of dating if there's a plan and it makes sense.
Yeah.
But dating for 4 years and there's no ring and there's no what's the hurry, I would say that's a relationship there's something wrong, and it could be that he just needs a couple of guys to come around him and say, hey, you need to mature. You're just wondering if something else better is going to come along. That's childishness. And this woman deserves better than to be treated this way. So, fish or cut bait. Right? So get the ring. Let's make a plan for the wedding. Or tell her.
Yeah, let her go.
Let her go.
Yeah. You always see like the TikToks and stuff that say, oh, like you should know within like 6 months of dating someone, like if you would spend forever with them. And I'm like, that seems fast, but I do think a lot of people say that they know. But
and there's different things. If you get in a dating relationship and you have a traumatic experience, or you're coming off of a traumatic experience, if you're coming off of a bad breakup, right, or you just lost a parent or a sibling, that could mean that you sort of you have a reset of your own, and it's not fair to put that on a relationship where that relationship's now going to stay on course for a short, for getting married in 6 months. You might need to reset everything. Doesn't mean you break up, but you got to deal with that. So there are some life circumstances that could cause a relationship to go on for 4 years, but that would be pretty rare.
Yeah. That's fair. I think that was all the questions I just had on the inquiry sheet. Thank you guys for asking John questions.
Yes, thanks guys. And thanks Dad for being on and answering all the questions.
Do you have any other just like wise wisdom you would like to?
Well, I was going to say, what is the best piece of marriage advice you've ever heard? Like a little, I don't know, can you think top of your head?
So I would say the best that I need to remind myself all the time is that marriage is a gift from God, and if it's not working, it's because I am expecting too much from it. That I'm expecting things maybe that are unrealistic, and the only thing I can fix in my marriage is me. I can change me, but more often than not, the problem is me. And then how do what am I not doing that my wife needs me to do? Or what am I doing that my wife needs me to stop doing? So I'm the one that needs to change. God made marriage. It's a blessing. It's a gift. So if there's something not working, look to yourself. What do I need to change, or what do I need to start to make it better?
I feel like that's just good life advice in general. Like
you can't change.
If you have a problem, you can't change the people around you as much as we want to sometimes.
Change how you're only in control of how you react to things. Yeah, it's good. Well,
I like that.
Thank you for being on.
Hey, my pleasure.
Taking the time.
Thank you. I'm sure you'll have it and all the stuff, but we'll put your info if people want to listen to your podcast
project,
or if you're taking on mentees.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to plug your business at all?
Well, the podcast is. I just don't know how to get feedback, or even to know how many people are listening to it or not. But
I'll help you with that after this.
Yeah. So, but it is, I do try to make it short. A lot of podcasts I listen to, I stop being engaged in the podcast about 8 to 10 minutes in, and maybe that's me. And so I make my podcast about 5 to 8 minutes long, because that's what I can handle. So it is, right now I'm going through Judges, but I have actually started reading through the Bible, which I never thought I would do. So I've done Genesis all the way to Judges, not counting numbers. I sort of did a flyover numbers, and then as I did Deuteronomy, I was like, oh dang, I should have done numbers. But so if you want to you can do that, and all I do is I read 7 to 12 verses and then talk a little bit about that and how it maybe can relate to us today, and then that's it. I try not to be preachy, but I'm trying to encourage you to read God's word. I'm trying to get you to read the Bible, and so that's what the podcast
That's what the project is.
It's all about. Yep, and that's the project. So
I love that.
And then I have started coaching, but I coach
like life coaching.
I hate calling it. It's really consulting, but high end earners that don't want to lose their families or their marriages. So there's a lot of guys out there that are very good at making money, but maybe they're not really making it at home. And so if they really, I think you can have it all, that you can be a high-end earner, have a super successful business, and have a great marriage. So take your marriage wherever it is. Is it bad? Is it sort of okay? Is it barely making it? Or is it good and you want to make it great? That's where I come in, and I help you with that, and I help you with relationships with your children. So really through you and your wife and your parenting style. So you can contact me. We'll
link it. Yeah. We'll get your email in there.
Balance your life.
So
we'll put your cell phone number all over. I swear someone signed me up for spam mail.
Same.
I have been getting so many spam emails.
Oh, emails?
So we won't actually put your email.
No. But yes, if you need any of that information, it'll be linked below. You can follow him or subscribe to his podcast, The Bushnell Project. And thanks again for being on, Dad.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.